Julian Chase pushed through the glass door of the cafe, the bell chiming with a sharp finality that echoed louder than it should have. He stepped inside, exhaling a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The quiet hit him first. No clatter, no rush, just the low hum of conversation and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. This was not the kind of place he usually chose. No polished marble, no latte art competitions, no Bluetooth eavesdropping, just cracked leather. Booths, hand-scrawled chalkboard menus, and the scent of burnt toast and cheap beans. It was ordinary, and for once, that felt like a relief. His phone buzzed in his blazer pocket probably. Another update from his assistant about the investor pitch that had just ended in tight smiles and veiled condescension. Ambitious, but maybe tone it down a little, Mr. Chase. Julian didn't check it. Not now. He approached the counter, glancing briefly at the barista wiping down mugs, and froze. Samila. Pregnant. Her eyes met his hand, widened just slightly before she quickly looked down, rearranging cups that didn't need rearranging. She wore her hair tied back, her sleeves rolled up to the elbow. An apron with a faded logo hiding the swell of her stomach, but not enough. Julian's body reacted before his mind caught up, jaw tight, shoulders rigid. Not a word spoken, but 1,000 screamed through the silence between them. She was the first to speak. Hi, soft, polite, as if they were strangers. Hi, he replied, carefully matching her tone. A pause. Heavy. What can I get you? Her voice was even. Practiced. Still avoiding his eyes, Julian scanned the menu without reading it. Black coffee. Large. Camila nodded, her fingers moving quickly over the buttons on the register. For 25, he tapped his card. Silence filled the space between them like fog. Behind him, a couple laughed over something on a phone. Life went on. He took the coffee. Their hands didn't touch. Her fingers brushed the cardboard sleeve instead. You, he started, but stopped. The words caught in his throat like a stone. I should get back to the orders, she murmured, already half-turned. He nodded once. Of course. Julian took his drink and turned toward the corner booth. He didn't sit, just stood there for a second too long, watching her disappear behind the machine. She hadn't asked how he'd been. He hadn't asked if she was okay. That silence between them was the only honest thing left, as he stepped outside into the cold. Bitter air. His reflection followed him in the darkened window-sharp suit, polished shoes, a face they put on magazine covers. But none of that mattered now, not when his past had just looked him in the eyes and pretended not to know him. Tomorrow, he told himself, just to ask one question. Is it mine? Julian didn't sleep. His penthouse windows watched over the city like cold, unblinking eyes. But they offered no comfort, just skyline shadows and memories that refused to die. The coffee from the day before still lingered in his throat, bitter and unfinished. So he returned, same cafe, same hour, same bell overhead. That sounded more like a warning than a welcome. Camila was there again. This time he didn't pretend. It was for the coffee. She looked up. For half a second, her expression cracked surprise, maybe regret, but she smoothed it over like a smudge on a plate. Back again, she asked, her voice neutral. I had questions yesterday, Julian said, stepping forward. Didn't get to ask them. Camila handed a receipt to the man beside him, smiled briefly, then turned back to Julian. Yes. Well, this isn't exactly the place for questions. I'm not here to fight. No, she said, almost too quickly. You never fight. You make speeches. Julian flinched. You mean I speak up? Camila sighed, glancing toward the kitchen door. Look, if you want coffee, order it. Otherwise, I'm working. He didn't move. Is it mine? Camila's. Hands stilled on the countertop. She didn't look up, didn't speak right away. Then, does it matter? Her words hit like a slap. But it wasn't anger in her voice. It was something worse, weariness, like someone who'd carried too many answers alone. Julian stepped back, his mind spiraling. He remembered her parents' dinner table, stiff with silence when he first came to meet them. Her mother's smile stretched too tight. Her father's questions too careful. The champagne they never opened. The room had reeked of discomfort and denial, and Camila had sat there, to still. Pretending not to notice, he had. He remembered the day he led a protest outside his company's headquarters after the board dismissed a black employee's harassment claim. Camila had begged him not to. "You'll burn bridges," she'd said. "You'll lose everything." But to Julian, silence was the bigger loss. She'd left too. Weeks later, now here she was pregnant, tired, and hiding behind a cash register. He wanted to ask more. About where she'd been. About who she was now. But he could already feel the wall rising between them again. It's time built from things neither of them had the language to name. Julian took a breath. "You don't have to answer me now," he said, "but I'll be back." Camila didn't respond. She turned quietly toward the espresso machine. He watched her for a beat longer, then walked out. Outside, the sky had shifted gray clouds curdling over rooftops. He slipped his hands into his coat pockets, the wind catching at his collar, for the first time in a long time. Julian felt small again, and behind him, in a small cafe filled with clinking plates and things unsaid, Camila reached for a cup with a trembling hand unseen and very much alone. Julian sat in the corner booth again. Same seat, same bitter roast. It had become routine, now showing up without announcing himself, watching the place like it might spill secrets if he stared. Long enough, Camila moved like clockwork, her swollen belly tucked behind the counter, her eyes dim but alert. She hadn't spoken to him since that second visit, but she knew he was there. They always knew when the past was watching. At the register, a girl worked beside her, barely 16. Bright curls tucked under a cap, sleeves rolled high like she was trying to prove something. Lily, her name tag read. She smiled with effort at each customer, but Julian noticed the tension in her jaw. The way she checked her reflection in the napkin dispenser when no one was looking. A familiar armor. Behind them both, Ray hovered. Ray, the manager, was the kind of man Julian had encountered 1,000 times in boardrooms, grinning too wide, laughing too loud, thinking himself harmless because his racism came wrapped in sarcasm. "Hey, Camila," he drawled, walking by with a tray of dirty mugs. "Make sure Lily here doesn't scare the customers, huh?" He smirked at his own joke. Lily froze. Camila didn't blink. "She's doing fine," she said, voice low, measured Julian. Clenched his jaw, Ray leaned closer to Lily. "You gotta smile more, sweetheart. You've got that. Urban edge, and this is a family place." Urban edge. Julian's knuckles whitened around his coffee cup. It got worse when a woman in pearls and pastel walked in, ordered a cappuccino, eyed Lily, and whispered just loud, "Enough? Do you check IDs? She looks ... suspicious." Before Lily could answer, Camila stepped in. "She's my trainee," she said evenly. "Her drawer balance is better than mine." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Just saying. You can't be too careful these days." Camila offered a tight smile. And yet, here we are. Ray laughed as if Camila were the punchline. "You're one of the good ones, Camila," he said. "Know how to keep things smooth." Camila didn't reply, but something in her posture stiffened, just barely. Julian saw it. Saw her take the insult, like armor absorbs a blow. He remembered the boardroom, in his final pitch to bring on day consultants. The sideways glances, the post-meeting emails. "Julian, you're making people uncomfortable," he remembered coming. Home to Camila, the silence in her eyes as he vented. How she didn't fight with him, just went to bed. He'd mistaken her quiet for indifference. But maybe it had always been something else. Survival. That night after the cafe closed, Julian lingered outside. Camila stepped out minutes later, one hand on her back, wincing. "Need a ride?" he asked. "No," he hesitated. "I saw what happened." "Ray shouldn't, he's not the worst I've worked for," she cut in. "And Lily? She's tougher than she looks." Julian stepped closer. "Why don't you say something?" Camila looked at him, then really looked. "Because I need to eat. Because Lily needs to keep her job. Because yelling doesn't always mean winning." Julian swallowed hard. She walked past him, slow and careful. You think silence means surrender? But sometimes it's just survival. As she vanished into the streetlights, Julian stood there, chest heavy, foundation cracking. Maybe she hadn't stopped fighting. Maybe he just hadn't stayed long enough to see how she fought. The day it exploded started like any other. Julian walked into the cafe again. It's time not for peace or reflection, but with heat simmering in his chest. He hadn't planned to get involved. But watching Ray lean over Lily the previous afternoon, barking about presentation while customers snickered, it twisted something deep in him. Today, the regulars were in their usual seats, their usual comments. An older man in a pressed golf shirt leaned across the counter. "You should hire more Americans," he said loudly, gesturing to Lily. "Just saying." Ray chuckled from the back. "I can't say it, but you're not wrong." Lily blinked. Camila went still. Julian stood. He crossed the cafe in 3 long strides and planted himself between Ray and the counter. "Say that again," he said. Evenly, Ray turned, feigning confusion. "Excuse me, you heard me." Ray's smile thinned. "We don't want trouble here. You are the trouble." Camila's voice cut in, sharp. "Julian, don't." Ray raised his hand. "You want to come in here? Play savior for a day? That's cute. But this isn't your business." Julian leaned in. "Racism is everyone's business. Out," Ray barked. Now, the cafe fell silent. Lily had her phone out, trembling hands barely holding it steady. The screen blinked red. Recording. Ray grabbed Julian's arm. "Bad move." Julian jerked back, eyes flaring. "Don't touch me." Camila was at his side in an instant, hand on his chest. "Please, not here." But it was already done. Ray pointed to the door, shouting, "Get him out!" Before he ruins everything. Julian didn't resist, just looked at Lily, who nodded once. Then he left by nightfall. The video was everywhere. The headline on Twitter read, "Black entrepreneur confronted for calling out racism in cafe. Watch how staff tries to shut him down." It caught fire in minutes. Lily's footage showed everything: Ray's smirk, Julian's calm fury, the customer's slur. TikTok took it next. Instagram Reels followed. Influencers called for boycotts. Activists dug into Ray's past, unearthing old posts and worse jokes. Samila found out the same way everyone else did, on her phone. In the staff locker room. 10 minutes later, Ray called her in. "We're letting you go," he said, avoiding her eyes. "For what?" Ray shifted in his seat. "It's too much attention. Bad for business. I didn't do anything." "Exactly," he muttered. "This isn't about right or wrong, Camila. This is about safety. Yours, ours." And that was that. She stepped outside into a city drowning in rain. Her coat barely held against the wind. Julian stood under the awning, watching cars blur by. She didn't speak at first, just cried, shoulders shaking, rain mixing with tears until it was all the same. "You always thought I had a choice," she whispered finally, voice cracking. "You left when I stopped fighting your war?" "But I was still fighting mine." Julian didn't answer. Couldn't. She looked up at him, eyes red and raw. "I couldn't yell like you. I couldn't risk everything. I had no armor. Just ... me. And now I've lost everything anyway." He stepped closer, slowly. "Camila, no," she said, steadying herself. "You don't get to rescue me now. Not when I've been surviving alone for so long." Julian swallowed hard, his breath fogging in the air. He'd seen injustice from podiums, from boardrooms. But this quiet destruction, where dignity was lost in silence, he'd never truly understood it until now. She turned from him, her figure dissolving into the storm. And for the first time, Julian didn't chase her. Not yet. Camila didn't answer Julian's calls. She didn't need his apologies. She needed peace. But peace, as it turned out, was loud drumming hands, gospel hums, and the soft thud of folding chairs being pulled into circles. It smelled like sea butter and peppermint tea. It came with belly laughs and eyes that recognized her even before she spoke. The women at New Grace Baptist's maternal support program didn't ask why she showed up. They just scooted over and made room. "Baby, sit," said one, patting the metal chair beside her. "You're already family." Mila hesitated, belly heavy, nerves frayed, but she sat. Each Tuesday she returned. Slowly, her shoulders uncurled. Slowly, she started to speak. Not about Julian, not at first, but about shame, about fear, about being stared at on sidewalks, called names in checkout lines, told she was confused, irresponsible, a phase, about being too white for this, too wrong for that, and always somehow in the way. One morning mid-session, the church door creaked. Julian stood there, out of place in his tailored coat, holding a paper bag like a peace offering. He hadn't expected the laughter, the strength. He'd pictured brokenness. Instead, he found Camila glowing in the circle barefaced. Surrounded by women whose arms draped over each other like woven rope, Mrs. Eliza noticed him first, tall, silver-haired woman with a gaze that didn't flinch. "You lost," she asked loud enough for everyone to hear. Julian cleared his throat. "No, ma'am. I'm here for Camila." Mrs. Eliza raised an eyebrow. "Well, she ain't here for you. Not today." Camila stood quiet, but firm. "It's okay, Eliza."
Eliza nodded,
but didn't smile. "He steps out of line, you know where to find me." Outside on the cracked church steps, Camila took the bag from Julian. "What's this?" "Food. From that spot on 12th. Your favorite. You remembered?" "I never forgot." Silence. Settled, soft, but sharp. "I saw you in there," Julian said. "You looked different." "I am different," she replied. "I had to be. After you left, I tried to vanish. Moved, changed my number, stopped correcting people who assumed. I was single, white, alone. But the world didn't let me forget." She looked him in the eye. "They still saw me as the woman who chose you." Julian's voice cracked. "I didn't know. No, you didn't want to." He sat beside her, the cold stone biting. "Want to do better?" Camila touched her belly. "Then start by being there for them. This child doesn't need speeches. It needs safety and truth." Julian nodded. "And you? I need you to stop seeing me as the girl you lost and start seeing the woman I became." Behind them, a baby cried. A door opened. Mrs. Eliza peeked out, offered Camila a blanket, then vanished again. Camila held the fabric in her lap, eyes on the street. Julian followed her gaze. "May I come back?" "Start with showing up." And just like that, she stood and returned to her circle. He didn't follow. Not yet, but he stayed. The air was thick with the scent of rosemary lamb and red wine. Camila's parents' dining. Room gleamed like a showroom, perfect lighting, curated art. Conversations rehearsed in front of mirrors. Julian sat at the end of the table, straight-backed. Napkin folded crisply in his lap. No one spoke to him. Not directly. Her mother refilled only 3 glasses hers. Camila's and her father's. Her father asked about neighborhoods changing. Avoiding Julian's eyes the way some people avoid dogs they've been told not to trust. Camila's fingers trembled under the table. She reached across and took Julian's hand. He squeezed once, gently, still polite, still hopeful. After dessert, in the silence of their guest room, he said, "They didn't even say my name." Camila blinked at the ceiling. "I noticed. You didn't say anything. I didn't want to make it worse." Julian turned his head, voice low. "For who?" That question never left her now. Months later, Camila sat by her bedroom window. One hand cradling her belly, the other holding a pen. "Dear child," she wrote, "you are made of 2 storms, and I will teach you how to stand in the rain." She paused. The wind outside scratched gently at the glass. "I tried to keep your father safe from the parts of my world that refused to change. But I never told him how it hollowed me out," I swallowed. "Their silences so he wouldn't have to. I thought love would shield us both. I was wrong." He fought loud. I disappeared quiet. Across the city, Julian stared at a laptop screen. His inbox was full. Investors hesitant. Press. Interested. His name was trending again. This time, it's for the right reasons. He'd launched the still-standing fund emergency grants and legal aid for workers. Dismissed after speaking out about racism, Lily was one of the first recipients. He'd called personally. She Cried on the phone, said no one ever backed me before. Julian had hung up and wept alone, because he remembered being told in a boardroom that his tone was becoming too urban, that clients responded better when he sounded neutral. He remembered swallowing his truth just to get the deal, and now he remembered Camilla sitting, silent, at that dinner table, carving his name into a place that refused to see him. They had both been trying to protect each other. Badly, the next morning, Julian knocked on her door with no cameras, no gifts, just a notebook. "Can I read you something?" Camilla cautious nodded. He opened to the first page. "This is a proposal, a space caf turned cope, run by the community. No ray, no abuse, just dignity." Job's voice. Camilla stared at him. "You'd do that. We'd do it. If you'd want." She let the words settle, then said quietly, "That place broke me. Then let's rebuild it, on your terms." She didn't smile, but she didn't say no, and sometimes not saying no was the first step toward something whole. The delivery room smelled like antiseptic in anticipation. Camilla's hand gripped Julian's tighter with every wave of pain, her breaths coming in quick, rhythmic bursts. Then silence broke, and was replaced by a cry so raw, so fierce, it felt like a song made of thunder. Their child had arrived. Julian didn't cry right away. He just stared at the tiny face, the soft brown skin, the fingers curling instinctively toward light. Camilla, pale and exhausted, held their newborn to her chest, her tears quiet but endless. "She's here," Camilla whispered. Julian nodded. "She's perfect." Outside, the world remained indifferent. The headlines hadn't changed, the systems hadn't crumbled, but something inside them had deranged, redefined. Weeks later, they stood together in a modest courtroom. Ray sat stiffly at the defense table, arms crossed, eyes glassy. No remorse. No apology. Camilla didn't wait for one. She stood, baby in arms, and told the truth out loud. "He humiliated me, fired me without cause, said it was for my safety, but I know what he meant, because I stood next to a black man, because I stopped being quiet." The judge nodded but didn't smile. Even justice here was muted. The settlement was small, but the moment was not. Afterward, reporters gathered outside. Camilla gave no comment, just held her daughter higher, as if to say, "You will not be invisible, Lily." Watched from the steps, her college sweatshirt bright against the courthouse gray. She hugged Camilla tightly. "I'm going to make you proud." "You already have," Camilla said. The still-standing fund had awarded Lily a full scholarship. She'd be the first in her family to graduate. Julian handed her the acceptance letter himself. And then, like breath after a long submersion, they opened the doors. The old cafe was unrecognizable. The booths restored, walls painted with murals of community and fire. The name above the window now read, "Home Ground, a community run, cafe safe, fair." Owned by those who'd once been pushed out. Camilla stood at the front with her baby, Julian beside her. Lily to the left. Customers walked in, families, students, old men who once kept their heads. Dawn now raised them. Julian watched his daughter sleep in Camilla's arms. "She still face it," he whispered. "The stares, the assumptions, the weight." Camilla looked at him. "Yes, but not alone," he smiled. "This wasn't revenge. This was repair."